Greetings, Uncle Travelling Matt here, and welcome to this, the first video of my daily vlogs from my trip to Bulgaria in July 2023. So I'm not in Bulgaria at the moment. At the moment I'm in Zagreb airport, where I'm transitioning on the way to Bulgaria. So what I thought I'd do now is give a bit of an overview of what I want to do, where I want to go, and why I'm going to Bulgaria now. People who know me for a while will be aware that this is very far from being my first visit to Bulgaria. In fact, I used to live there from 2002 to 2003, and it is one of my favourite countries in the world, if not my very favourite one. And so what I thought I'd first start off by doing is explain the history of my involvement with Bulgaria. It started way back in 1997, when, as a fresh-faced 19-year-old, I was out on Kibbutz River Vim in Israel. So I was doing some voluntary work out there, and there was a number of Ulpan students, and 3 of whom were Bulgarians. Now, Ulpan is like a program in Hebrew for new immigrants to the country. And at that time there was a lot of immigrants into Israel, Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe, because of course the Iron Curtain had fallen, so it was open to them for the first time. And the ones I met was Simeon and Pepi Kovacevi. They were a couple, and Katia Niego. Now Katia was from an old Sephardic Jewish family. Simeon had, I think it was a Jewish grandmother, I think. Pepi wasn't Jewish at all, but she was his wife, so that's why she was there. And they were brand new in Israel. It was their first time out of Bulgaria, and I became friends with them, particularly Simeon and Pepi. And they, you know, we became very good friends, and it made me think, do you know what, I want to go to that country. Also, I have to say that both Katia and Pepi were extremely good looking, and when you're 19, that's important. So I had it fixed in my mind that I really need to go to Bulgaria. However, after my year out, I went to university, the University of Leeds, and in the first year at university there are things called electives, where you can basically choose to do courses of study on anything in the whole university. It doesn't matter what your degree is in. And I was reading politics and social policy, but I decided to use some of my electives to learn a language. So I went to the elective kind of market at the beginning and said, well, I want to learn Russian, because I quite liked it, and you know, a bit of a socialist language, I thought. But they said you couldn't do the Russian because you needed to already have a prior knowledge of Russian. But you can learn Bulgarian, which is very similar. And I was like, oh, really? Because I remember my Bulgarians on the kibbutz, and particularly how good looking the girls were, and I thought, yeah, I want to learn Bulgarian. So I started studying Bulgarian at university for a couple hours a week, and it was really good. And it was actually the first time I managed to learn a foreign language. Before then I always thought I was a failure with foreign languages, that I didn't have the knack. And what I learned through Dr. Kalina Filipova, she was amazing, is that I'd been taught wrong, and I'd not been taught how to learn a language. And once she taught me, I wasn't a brilliant student, but I got it, and I still do speak Bulgarian. But I was even more planning my trip there, which was for the following summer. And this was the days of internet infancy. And there were no, well, I said there were no guidebooks. There was one rough guide to Bulgaria that wasn't very good. No Lonely Planet and no other guidebooks. So I wanted to go to Stara Zagora because that was the hometown of Pepi and Simeon, and well, yeah, Pepi and Simeon. So I wanted to go there, and there was literally no information about it, you know. So what I did is I thought I found a message board. Message boards were a thing in those days, and for the American University in Bulgaria. And I thought, well, if anyone can speak English, they can. And I put this message board out saying, I'm going to come as a tourist. Can anybody help me, give me some travel tips to Stara Zagora? And 2 or 3 people replied, and one of them I stayed in touch with. And she was a young lady named Eva. She came from Stara Zagora, and she agreed that when I went there I would meet up and stay with her. So that summer I went to Bulgaria, and I literally fell in love with the country. I stayed with Pepe's sister, Maria, in Stara Zagora, and then I went to Smolyan and stayed with Eva. She was not, yes, Eva. It was her aunt. She was staying at her aunt's house at the time, and her aunt was a communist MP, and literally the night I was staying there, Todor Zhivkov, the old communist dictator, died, and so I witnessed the tributes to his life on one of my first nights in Bulgaria, in the house of a communist, well, in the apartment of a communist MP. And anyway, and I literally fell in love. I fell in love with Bulgaria, travelled around, visiting her friends, and I really liked her as well. We were just friends, but I really, really liked her. And so the next summer I came again, and our friendship deepened, and she later came to Leeds to live with me. Unfortunately, it wasn't altogether that successful because my dad died then, and then basically I did get romantically involved with her, and then she basically left to marry another guy, and that was quite hard. And one of the things is I didn't want it to spoil my relationship with the country. And so after I'd been to, I lived 2 years in Japan, I got myself a job in Bulgaria, in Varna, and I went overland from Japan to Bulgaria. Not entirely, I should have done it entirely, but when we got to Ukraine they locked us up in prison for a day and then chucked us out, so we had to get a flight to Sofia from Moscow. But yeah, mostly overland, and then I lived in Bulgaria for a year, in what was probably the happiest year of my life. I don't know, I've had a lot of happy years, but it was an amazing year. I worked in the school of a guy called Mr. Popov in Varna. I had just an incredible time with the students were brilliant. Also had made friends there, both Bulgarian, and there's also a couple of English people in the school as well. And I still had some of Eva's friends from university, Gilbert and Fatmay. They'd been friends of hers that I stayed in touch with. And I really delved into the culture and, of course, improved my language skills. And I cemented, I won't say I fell in love with Bulgaria then, because that happened early, but I cemented the love affair that I still hold to this day. I have been back a couple of times since. I don't tend to go back to places, but I went back in 2010 for one of my former students' wedding, and then also an old school friend of mine was a missionary up in the northwest of the country. So I went there and then continued on. The trip was basically from Varna to Dubrovnik, and it was across the Balkan Peninsula, and I had a bit of an explore of Serbia and Bosnia and Croatia and Montenegro. And then I also returned in 2016 on a short trip, and that one, there are videos on my channel. But yes, this is the first trip in a few years, and the reason why I'm making the trip now is twofold. Firstly, Alex, who's my common travelling companion these days, he's the guy who I met on the trip to Eritrea, and I went to Lebanon with, and then to Cyprus with last year. He'd never been, and I kept saying, oh, he needs to go. So, and there was he's into opera, and there's the ring cycle on at Sofia, so he's actually there already, and he's been listening to the opera. And then I'm joining him, and I'm hiring a car, and we're going all around the country, and I'm basically hoovering up all the sites that I never saw when I lived there. And there was quite a few, because although I did do a lot of sightseeing, I didn't have a car at the time, or access to a car. So this is different. We're planning to go to a lot of monasteries, because they're all out of the way. And Alex and I we do like a good monastery. So we're planning to go to lots of monasteries and some out-of-the-way sites and a few archaeological sites and that, and basically to see everything that I really want to see that I never saw when I lived there. And of course for Alex it's all new. So we'll be spending a lot of time in the centre of the country. There's a lot of monasteries there and other sites, also some old communist era sites. It will mostly be new places, but there are a couple of old friends, so we're going to pop into Stara Zagora, I think, and I'm going to have a day or so in Varna, where I'm hoping to meet my former boss, Господин Popov, who ran the school, and Pavel Marinov, one of the fellow teachers. So, you know, something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. There we are. That is going to be my trip to Bulgaria, so long as it's plane from Zagreb on time and gets me to Sofia. But thus far, it's been hassle-free, apart from Ryanair's horrendous online check-in service, which just caused me to pull my hair out. Anyway, that's that. This is Uncle Travelling Matt. Do watch all the videos and keep travelling.